This is your weekly tech recap with Jamal Abbott. News and insights about the tech world in plain English. Thank you for listening. We're in episode number 17, and I know it's been a little while since I've done an episode, and I apologize for that, but I'm so glad that you're here with me today, and I got some news to bring to you. So this one's going to be a little different in that we're going to kind of quickly recap what has happened since the last time that we've done an episode. So we'll cover some 5G news dealing with China. We'll also go into the streaming wars. There's been a lot of streaming announcements that have happened since the time that we've last talked, as well as dig into more of the 5G news that's happening in the United States. So that's the episode for today. And once again, I really thank you for being here and hanging out with me as we dive into the news. So we'll jump into our first story with China launching their 5G network early. So China turned on its 5G network early, and they were anticipating on getting this launched sometime in 2020. Now, China Telecom, China Unicom, and China Mobile are the carriers that have deployed their 5G networks and have pricing around $18 a month, and that's in US dollars. So commercial services are available in 5 Chinese cities, including Beijing and Shanghai. Now, I meant to say 50, not 5, but 50. 50 cities across China. Sorry about that. So why is this a big deal? If you've been paying attention to the news with the US and China, there's this big old trade war that's going on. What's not really talked about, though, with this whole trade war is that there's another war that's going on with technology and with 5G. So since the trade wars have progressed and since there's been a lot of disagreements with the United States and China, that has caused China to move up its 5G date from 2020 to launching right now. So China is on track to be the largest 5G market in the world. This country will have 110 million 5G subscribers in 2020, as well as account for the largest number of 5G connections by the year 2025. So that's bigger than North America and Europe combined, and that's according to the GSMA. So then we're going to fast forward to some projections for the year of 2035. Now, this is a mind-blowing number. I can't put my head around all these zeros up to this point yet, but in 2035, 5G is going to account for $12.3 trillion of global economic output, according to IHS Markit. That's a lot of dollars. And so you can see why that some of these countries are really excited about getting 5G out there. And then you can see why there's some tensions with the United States and with China. And that's all because of this huge opportunity for the 5G market. So China has launched 5G services early. The US, we are still on track with some of the major carriers deploying 5G. We'll hear a little bit more about that later on in the show. But China is ready. They've launched their 5G networks, and then we're going to hear more about 5G coming from this country here in the near future. For this next story, it's more going to be a discussion about something I've been tracking for a long time, and that's the streaming wars. So what do I mean by streaming wars? I'm talking about, and we have some other streaming players like Hulu, CBS has an offering, and then just as well as some other smaller streaming services that are out there for consumers. So with the streaming wars, it's a big opportunity because a lot of the attention has shifted away from traditional linear TV over to the mobile devices. So I have my mobile device in its hand, and I can literally take my stream with me anywhere I go. And that's something that we couldn't do with the old TV technology from back in the day. So pretty much back in my day, if I want to watch something on TV, I had to be right there at that time and at that place. And if I missed out on an episode, then I was out of luck. I had to wait for the reruns, and there was no telling when that rerun would occur. So that's the streaming wars in a nutshell. It's this little ongoing battle, and I think more of the media is playing this up to be a streaming battle. But there's so many different streaming offerings out there, so why not spice it up a little bit and then call this a streaming wars? So with streaming, there's been some recent changes here. One of those changes has been the entrance of another streaming competitor, and this one is coming from AT&T, and they announced back in October some details about their HBO Max streaming offering. So this is coming out sometime in 2020, spring 2020, and the service is going to debut at $14.99 a month. So if you're an existing AT&T HBO subscriber, you will get access to HBO Max at no additional charge. So how cool is that? You don't have to worry about paying for that. Now there are plans for an ad-supported version of this, so it'll be HBO Max, but instead of having this being ad-free, you'll have some commercials. And my guess about this too is that these commercials aren't going to be so intrusive, not like it is right now with regular linear television. But there's going to be an ad version of that that's coming out in 2021. And on top of this, AT&T recently changed their unlimited wireless plans to include some of the tiers that have HBO Max as an option to choose. So if you get the higher tier of unlimited plan, you'll get HBO Max included in the price of your subscription. So that's pretty cool. So there's more details that are going to be coming out with this as the time moves on. So we talked about HBO Max, and now we're going to be transitioning now to Disney Plus. So this just came out this week, as of this recording. So it came out just this week, and it is really, really, really popular. So the first day that the streaming service came out, there was over 10 million subscribers that actually signed up for the service. We're not sure how many of those users were Verizon users, and the reason why I'm saying Verizon users is because if you're a Verizon customer, so meaning that you subscribe to their wireless service, if you subscribe to the internet service, depending on where you're at in the United States, you can get access to Disney Plus for 1 year for free. How cool is that? If you're not a Verizon customer, or you're not in the area that you don't have Verizon service as far as home internet goes, you can still get access to Disney Plus. You can get a 7-day trial for free, and then after that you'll be charged $6.99 a month, or you can pay this all at once and pay about $69 a year, and that gives you a little bit of a price break with that. The cool thing too that Disney is doing, since they own ESPN and Hulu, they are also offering a bundle deal. So if you want Hulu, if you want Disney Plus, and then you want ESPN Plus, you can get all three of those for $12.99. And so that's a pretty good deal if you're into sports, if you're into some of the kid content, as well as some of the offerings from Hulu. So sounds like a pretty good deal about that. So another thing to mention too about Disney Plus, you get unlimited downloads for all of your content, as well as being able to view this offline. You can view up to 10 devices, and then you can do up to 4 concurrent streams. So that means that if you're a family of 4, every one of you all can stream Disney Plus all at the same time. And just to talk about some of the other streaming options out there, Peacock, which is from NBC Universal, which is under the Comcast business unit. So they're going to be introducing their streaming service, and that's going to be coming out sometime in 2020. And that one, they're kind of thinking about, okay, well, HBO is already out there, Netflix is already out there. How can we stand out from the rest of the competition? And there's some rumblings out there that they might actually introduce this Peacock streaming service for free as an ad-supported option. So we'll see how this transpires, but you can see there's a lot of jockeying and a lot of positioning right now that's happening with the streaming services. So we talked about HBO Max, we talked about Disney Plus, we talked about Peacock, and there's a couple other things I want to highlight here in this streaming discussion. So Apple TV Plus, that's already out. We talked about this on previous episodes. That's available on all platforms. You don't necessarily have to be an Apple customer to take advantage of that. But if you are an Apple customer, it's available to you. And if you buy like a new iPhone or some other new Apple device, you can get a year free of Apple Plus by purchasing that. So good news for you. If you enjoy the Apple content, that's available to you. Speaking of more streaming, Sony PlayStation Vue. So PlayStation Vue was something that I had subscribed to and really enjoyed the service. But Sony had made some announcements and they're going to shutter the service by the end of either this year or early next year in January. So they realize that this is a tough market. They're going to cut their losses with this platform. They're going to focus gaming. So that's what's going on. There's a lot of stuff that's happening on the streaming front, and those are just for the paid options. Now I want to talk about some of the ad-free, or excuse me. Now I want to talk about some of the ad-supported versions. The ad-supported versions are the ones like I talked about earlier, where you'll watch your show, but as the show takes a break, there's going to be an ad, and the ad might go for anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds. So with Hulu, I have the ad-supported version. Since I'm a Sprint subscriber, I do get that included with my subscription. And the ads, to me, they're not that bad, but that's an ad-supported version of that product for Hulu. There's two ad-supported video on-demand offerings that I want to bring to your attention. One of them is called Pluto TV, so that's live TV that's being streamed over the internet, and that's available to anybody that wants to sign up, and you don't even have to sign up to watch and see what's happening on that platform. Interesting thing about Pluto TV is that they already have 12 million subscribers that are actually using this service, and this is growing over time, so there's a lot of momentum there with that. The other platform to mention is called Tubi. So this is similar to how like Netflix is to movies and documentaries and things like that. But once again, this is all ad supported. So there's not going to be like a whole lot of brand new content on there. But if you're into some of the old stuff, you're able to watch it, deal with a couple ads, but it's something that you don't have to pay for. So that's another option for you. And so another thing to consider too is that if you buy like a new TV, it's probably going to be preloaded with Pluto TV or maybe even Tubi, but they rebrand and then package it with the TV manufacturer's branding for that streaming service. So that's what's going on with Pluto TV and for Tubi. Those are two options that are available. Very, very popular. Millions of subscribers that are already using the service. So if you don't want to participate and have to pay for another streaming option, that's available to you. Last streaming note I want to bring to your attention here is IMDb TV. So IMDb, that's the Internet Movie Database, and they've been around for quite some time, and this is the place that I've looked at on the internet to get information about movies or different TV shows, or maybe want to find an actor that's in a show that you're watching. They have a ad supported option available to you, and this one's through Amazon. So if you have the Fire TV, it's pretty tightly integrated into that experience, and then you're able to watch some of the older movies or TV shows available on that platform. They also have a standalone app that you can get on your smartphone, and that allows you access to watch some of that streaming content. So there are a lot of options out there if you're into movies and TV shows. This is probably the most that I've ever seen in a lifetime, and you can very, very easily replace what you're doing with cable TV if you're sick and tired of watching the same old stuff or flipping through the channels and not seeing what you want. And you can easily get the shows that you want and then pay a lot less for that. And then for the sports fans that are out there too, there's some other ways to get around the cable subscription. So Hulu has a sports option, or if you want to get some of your local sports channels, you can get your stream. You can actually get the broadcast over the air through, remember, like the old school bunny ears. So that's another option that you can use for sports. So lots of options out there. That's the streaming wars in a nutshell. It's still developing, and then as these ad-supported options are coming up, that's going to be another segment of the streaming wars that's going to get most of people's attention. So more about 5G news. So we're going to quickly cover what's been happening with the carriers in the United States. And then on another episode, we'll dig further into what's happening around the world as we usually do. But since we've had a little break, I just want to catch you up with what's going on with 5G in the United States. So we'll turn our attention to Verizon. So Verizon has 15 5G cities, and they're on track to reach their goal of 30 5G cities by the end of the year. So some of the most recent cities that they've done here is Panama City, Florida, Boise, Idaho, Dallas, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, and they've also expanded their existing 5G network in the Chicago area. So that was one of the first 5G cities that they turned up on the Verizon network, and they've expanded that to include 5G Home. And then what 5G Home is just an option to being able to replace your internet service at home. So you might have maybe DSL coming into your house. You might have that cable connection coming to your house, and that provides your access to the internet for your home. Well, what 5G Home does is being able to take that 5G signal and then having like a router or a 5G modem sitting in your home, and then that has a direct signal going back to the Verizon network, and then you don't have any additional cables coming into your house. So I foresee this being a viable replacement option once 5G is up and running and offered by all the carriers out there. But Verizon's pretty early to the party with delivering 5G home service, and this is an additional market that they have added to their portfolio. They already have Houston, Texas, Indianapolis, Indiana, Los Angeles, and Sacramento to the list of cities that offer 5G home service. So it's probably going to be in a limited area for now, but over time this will grow and expand, and Verizon's doing a lot of work in developing and expanding their 5G network. Now with AT&T. So AT&T has 5G service out there, but this one isn't available to just the general public, not quite yet. So if you're a business customer, you have the opportunity to sign up for 5G service, but they're not ready yet to deploy it to the general public for consumers. That's by design, but AT&T has plans to launch their 5G network next year in 2020, so that's right around the corner, and then we're going to be looking at millions of subscribers being served on the AT&T network. So AT&T's doing some great things with getting their network out there, and just a matter of time before it's available to all users. Now Sprint has 5G service out for 9 different markets, and that covers about 11 million subscribers. What they've done here recently is increase capacity, and now that covers from 11 million up to 16 million subscribers. Now, as far as 5G goes, there's no additional plans for Sprint to expand beyond the 9 markets that they've already deployed. But Sprint's future is tied into T-Mobile, and now we'll go over and check in with T-Mobile. Their plans are tied in with T-Mobile, and if these two companies get together, they will launch a nationwide 5G network using the Sprint assets as well as some assets from the T-Mobile network for this deal to be closed. But here recently, the FCC has officially signed off on the Sprint and T-Mobile merger. So that's good news as these two companies combine together as they try to battle out against Verizon and AT&T. Until then, though, they had to settle some of these lawsuits that have popped up by these different state attorney generals, And then here recently, there's been some settlements where states like Colorado and Mississippi have settled their agreements and have dropped the suits altogether. So I have a funny feeling that this is probably the sign of things to come. But we'll have the trial for this lawsuit will take place sometime early December. And then speaking of December, that's the time when T-Mobile will launch their nationwide 5G network. Now, up to this point, T-Mobile had launched 5G in 6 cities using the high band spectrum. So this high band spectrum only covers a short distance. So you have to be in an ideal spot to take advantage of the signal. And T-Mobile now is going to be launching their nationwide 5G network on December 6th. So this will be using their low band spectrum, the 600 megahertz spectrum. And then this spectrum is known for broad coverage and then being able to serve and to cover a large number of users. So they're actually estimating that this 5G service will be covering about 200 million people, and then we'll have speeds in the 600 to 700 megabits per second range. So super exciting. 5G is almost officially here nationwide, and then looks like T-Mobile is going to have that claim to fame for this designation. So that's what's going on with the major US wireless carriers. A lot of activity happening with 5G. There's a lot of positioning, there's a lot of trash talk that's happening, but there's a lot of good work with moving this technology forward. So looking forward to see how this all plays out. Okay, we've reached the Q&A portion of the show, and I love answering questions. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You hit me up. Spend a lot of time here on LinkedIn, so I would love to see a question here on LinkedIn, and that's at Jamal Abbott. But you know where to find me at. I'm on Quora, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all different social platforms. Hit me up, Jamal Abbott. If you want to email me a question, it's jamal@thephoneguy.com, and that's THA, phoneguy.com. Shoot your questions there, and I would love to have the opportunity to answer this on the show. And he wants to know, why isn't cable service dead considering all the streaming services? And that's a really good question. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, there's a lot of options out there. The main reason why cable isn't dead is because streaming is still pretty early in the game. So when we think about cable TV services, we're talking about something that's been around for decades, something that has penetrated just about every single home in the United States and in other parts of the world. And it's just going to take time for that transition to happen, coming off of cable TV and then going over to streaming TV. Some folks aren't all that technically savvy, and they just may not be aware of it. And there are some people that are aware of this, but they're not really comfortable with the idea of watching TV using streaming services. They may be intrigued, but they just don't have any idea or don't even have any clue of where to begin. So I'll give you it's not really funny, but a story for my auntie. So my auntie, she got a Fire TV stick from her daughters for her birthday. This is probably a couple years ago. Birthday was in February, and it sat at her house for a month because she didn't know how to hook it up. So I happened to be in town. She told me about it. I said, hey, look, I got you. No problem. I'll get it hooked up. So got it hooked up in a few minutes, showed her how to go through there, and then checked in on her a couple months later. And she's like, hey, this is great. I get all my shows, found some new stuff, and I'm ready to ditch the cable TV subscription. So I think that's, part of the reason. It's still early. Some folks don't know how to get the streaming services onto their TV. They understand the concept of the cable TV box, but they're just not quite ready yet to give up the cable TV. So we're creatures of habit, and sometimes old habits are hard to break. But with a little knowledge, with a little help, each one of these folks can move over to these streaming services, but it's just going to take a little bit of time. So in the meantime, it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen as fast as It's not going to happen as fast as we think, but I have a thought here, and I would say probably within the next 10 years. So if we revisit this question here at the end of 2020, at the end of the 2020s, looking into the 2030s, I think we'll see a significant portion of the population using streaming services and then not so much using cable TV. So it's going to happen. And then when that does happen, the advertisers are going to be on those platforms that are making money for them, and they're not going to be on linear TV services that aren't being able to reach the consumers. So in due time, it's not dead yet. People are still using it, and it's just going to take a little time before that actually happens fully. This next question is from Nick, and he wants to know, what are the pros and cons of having to pay cable and home phone instead of paying premium unlimited cell phone service? So this is a good question. And if you are like anybody else that has a cell phone and unlimited data, you probably use mainly that to do any of your communicating, your talking, maybe watching TV. So it's like, why am I even bothering paying for cable or even paying for home phone service if I'm not using these other things? And so this all depends on your usage and all on, how you use the services at home. So for some of the younger users who are pretty tech savvy, it doesn't make sense to me to have the cable TV connection, not unless you're trying to watch something specific that you can't get on one of these streaming platforms. The home phone doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me either, not unless you're in an area that has really bad reception for cell phone coverage. So you might want to keep a home phone handy, for that reason. And that's something cut off completely from using the internet. But I remember one time when I was on the tier data plans, meaning that I had maybe 8 gigs of data per month. And the reason why I was on that at the time, just a short story, I wasn't leaving the house that much since I work from home, and I just didn't have the need to use the internet service from my cell phone carrier, mainly because I was on Wi-Fi. But going out, burning up the data, went over that threshold, and then I went back to 2G, and it was so slow. Ridiculously slow. Like you couldn't even use the internet type of slow. So I ended up bumping that up to limited data, and haven't had that problem since. So that could be a problem if you switch over to just using the cell phone only and using that function as far as data goes. But for TV, just like we talked about earlier in this episode, you have options for Hulu, options for Netflix, options for Disney. You have some streaming options that are ad supported, meaning that you don't have to pay for them and you can use them. No reason why you can't switch over and get a streaming service like YouTube TV or Hulu with live TV and then replace your cable. It's there. And I don't see any reason why that you couldn't dish the home phone, not unless you have some problems with service in your area. So just consider those things. If you have issues with service, you may want to keep the landline phone. If you have maybe some shows that you really want to watch, but you don't want to get rid of the cable TV package, then you might want to keep it. But outside of those other reasons, if you're on the other end of the spectrum where everything's good, you're in a good area with service, and you can watch all your shows on one of the main streaming platforms, go ahead and cut that other stuff. It's not needed. You can save some money, and then you can use that money for something else. Maybe even a higher package internet plan, or maybe you want to subscribe to more streaming services. So you have options. It's just a matter of how you want to play it, but this is a good time to reevaluate your needs and what you want to do, and then compare that with what's out there in the market. This next question is from Thorin, and he asks, will the short range of 5G cell towers prevent 5G wireless from taking off and reaching full adoption? So no, because there are different types of spectrum or wireless airwaves that are out there for 5G services. So Thorin, we hear about that short range capability mainly because, especially in the United States, able have led their 5G deployments specifically with the short range frequency that allows for super fast blazing speeds, but the coverage and the distance is very, very limited. So that's the reason we call it high band spectrum. There's two other frequencies that, but there's two other spectrums that really haven't been utilized for the rest of the carriers. So Sprint has the mid-band spectrum, so that's like the middle of the road. So you have a nice balance of coverage and a nice balance of speed, but with that mid-band spectrum, specifically the United States, it's like fragmented. So Sprint has a lot of it that they've gathered over time, but T-Mobile and then AT&T and Verizon, they may have little bits and pieces of it, but they don't have quite the spectrum range that Sprint has, and then is being able to deliver that broad coverage with the blazing fast speeds at that level. And then so also you have the low band spectrum. So we have the high band spectrum, so super fast speeds. The distance is horrible, but that's what the carriers have led off with. You have the mid-band spectrum, so that's where you have the nice balance. And now you have the low-band spectrum, and that's where you have the broad coverage as well as decent speeds, but not the blazing fast speeds that you had at the high band of the spectrum range. So T-Mobile is going to deploy their 5G network nationwide, and that's supposed to cover up to 200 million people in the United States. And then one of the promises that T-Mobile and Sprint have made to the FCC is to combine together and then deploy 5G services for rural areas all across the United States, and then providing at least up to 100 megabits per second as far as download speeds. So to answer your question, 5G will take off. There won't be a shortage. The only shortage that's going to come into play is one of the individual carriers not having enough spectrum, so not having enough real estate, I should say, to deploy their 5G network across the United States. So that's the only reason that any one of these carriers would be prevented from deploying 5G nationwide. Now the adoption part will come into play as more consumers have the handsets and they have the needs to use these 5G services. And a couple use cases for consumers would be faster speeds when it comes to mobile service. And the other use case would be to replace your home internet connection. So if you can get a 100 meg internet connection off of wireless, and you don't have to worry about, getting, fiber ran to the home, or you don't have to worry about cable TV or the cable subscription coming into the home being fast enough. So that's an option, and that's going to drive up the desire to get 5G to the home, especially if it's priced right. So as the technology becomes more available, and as the tools and the devices support 5G, you're going to have the adoption, but it's just a matter of waiting for that to come about over time. We're still pretty early in the race, but 2020 is going to be the year where we start to see nationwide 5G coverage coming from all four carriers across the United States. And then in some other parts of the world, we're going to start to see more nationwide deployments, and then just more adoption and more use cases with 5G. So it's coming. The short range of the cell phone towers isn't an issue, mainly because there's some other spectrum wireless airways that. Okay, so we did it. We made it. We made it to the end of the episode, and I thank you so much for hanging out, for tuning in, and for watching. If you're out there on the internet, I really appreciate you for checking out the show. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up, Jamal at thephoneguy.com. Hit me up on social media, LinkedIn, Quora, Instagram. I'm out there on social media. Shoot me a message, and we'll just love to hear from you, get some feedback from you. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to rate the show, Definitely appreciate the ratings that I have out there so far. And this is a blast. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.